Hi, AP Psych. So you guys had your AP Classroom tests today and Google Classroom FRQ. Hopefully that went okay. Today we're going to continue on with Module 61. And you'll probably learn some pretty interesting stuff here. So let me put this up here and I'll get started. This is a continuation of Module 61. And so you're going to see some terms here that are very useful to know. Very, very useful to know. And good arguing points. So standardization. So standardization is a term that you've probably heard a gazillion times and nobody knows what it means. Standardization is when you create a normal curve. Normal. No, hopefully that's not tilted, but I'm sitting sideways, so I don't know. I'm trying to do this as best I can here. So a normal curve, on IQ is 100 is the mean, median, mode. It's all three things. The central tendency is at 100 right there. So that's the IQ score. So standardization means when you it's like change the score of the 100 is changed based upon the group of people that are taking the test. So standardization is, it says, defining uniform testing procedures and meaningful scores by comparisons with the performance of a pre-tested group. So your AP is standardized, meaning when you, like, the standardization is using a pre-tested group, to develop scores. Who do you think they give the questions to and the AP tests to standardize, like whether or not you're getting a 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 or 5 is based on how they standardize the test. Not every SAT is the same. Not every AP is the same. So what you have to do is you test the scores. And who do you think they use? College students. They use college students, and they also use. You probably noticed on your SAT, there's a section there that they don't score for you, but it's used as a standardization trick. Like that's what they're using to standardize, because you don't know which part of the test they're not scoring, and so you'd basically do all the tests the same way, and you can now like what they're doing is they're developing a rubric to grade you, and so and the standards changed, like especially with IQ. This thing called the Flynn effect is kind of crazy, but when it was standardized in 1920, when they were first giving the tests in around here in 1920, a score of an IQ of 100, which is the average person. That's the average person who took the test. 100 is the average score. So nowadays, if that same person was scored on the same test, so think about that. The same person was scored on the same test today and graded, but they graded the way that we grade it, and so they got the same amount right as they did in 1920. It's been standardized so that now a 76 would be what they would get if they scored the same way in 1920. So that means that this 100 value has changed over the years, and in fact, as a population who have taken the test, we've gotten more intelligent because our IQ scores keep going up. So hopefully that makes sense. I know that's like kind of wordy, and if you were sitting there like, I really need more questions, fire away, because if you want to email me a question about that, I'll try to explain it differently. But so what they do is when they develop the tests, they pre-test the questions, see how kids score, and then develop a rubric of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So on any given AP, so for AP Psych, it's somewhere in like the 80% range would be a 5, 70% range is a 4. It's like 55 to 60% is a 3. So it's something like that. So, but it changes every year depending on the pre-tested group. So hopefully that makes sense. The IQ normal curve. So this is if you've taken any statistics or you understand standard deviation, this will make a lot of sense. So 100, if this is like your group of people, 100 is your mean median mode score. Like that's the 100 is the average score basically. So if you went to 115 and 85, that's 15%, that's 15 points, sorry, 15 points is the standard deviation on the IQ normal curve. And so, and I may have referenced this in class before, but that means that 68% of the scores are going to be in between 85 and 115. So most people, like 68 out of 100 people in the United States, have an IQ score of somewhere between, if you took 100 random people, 68% of them, 68 of them would actually be right in between 85 and 115. If you go out 2 standard deviations, so you go to 70 and 130, so you just keep going away from the middle another 15 points. Now, from here to there, 95% of the people, so if you had a group of 100 people, random people from the United States, 95 of them would be have a score between 70 and 130. And then if you went 3 standard deviations out, so 55 and 145, 99% of the scores would be between those. So if you're an exceptional, like ridiculously high IQ, I mean, geez, if you're like 135 or something like that, you're technically a genius. So like anything out here is quite high. And anything below 55 is usually very low percentage of people have that as well. So, so anyways, this is what we're looking at. So that's the IQ normal curve, okay? And just kind of keep in mind that 15%, they do ask these questions on the AP. I guess it's multiple choice, so I guess you probably won't run into these questions, but it's really good to know that 15-point thing. And if you know your IQ score, like maybe you've taken the Wechsler and you figured out whatever your IQ score is, you can kind of find out where you are, in terms of standard deviation to the mean. If you have an IQ of 100, then you in 100 random people, you'd be the smartest. You'd be the half in the middle of between the highest intelligence and the lowest intelligence. You'd be like the middle person. But if you had a 145 IQ, you would be probably, if not the smartest person, there might be one person more intelligent than you. So that's like the thing. And 70 is sort of the cutoff for being in school, like regular school. If you're lower than that, you'll be in some sort of program that will be less designed academically, more towards a skill or something not as challenging academically, because it'd be too much. It'd be too difficult. So anyways, that's the stuff about the IQ. Okay, the Flynn effect is kind of crazy, but over the years, our population has gotten smarter and smarter and smarter. There's all sorts of guesses as to why that is. People say, food. People say computers. People say schooling. Like, there's all different, guesses or theories as to how the IQ scores have gone up so much, but really it's gone up quite a bit in the last handful of different generations. Okay, now just a little bit of terminology here: reliability and validity. Reliability means you get the same scores every time. It's like reliable, same every time. So you can kind of picture a test retest reliability. That means like if you took the SAT and you got 1300, and then you took the SAT again and you got a 900, you would say, oh, that has some test retest reliability problems, because you should be fairly similar to what, like whatever you get. So reliability test retest means you should get the same score or close to the same score every time you take it. Split, unless you're studying like crazy, then not. This split half reliability means like if I gave a handful of kids the odds and a handful of kids the evens, they should get relatively similar scores. Like it should kind of fall similarly. Okay, so that's the split half reliability. So that's odds evens. Or the first part of the test, second part of the test, whatever, however you want to break that down. Validity is a really interesting one. This means, like, is it testing what it's supposed to? So if I gave you the content validity means, are we testing the right content? And predictive validity is, does it predict, or does it have predictive power? Let's actually change that. Does it have predictive power? So the answer to those questions is, like if I gave you an AP test, AP psych test, and I didn't teach you half of the stuff, that would be pretty bad content validity, because that would not be the right content that I'm testing. It's not predicting what it's supposed to. It's not testing what it's supposed to. And then predictive validity means, so if I say, if you get a 1400 on your SAT, that's a pretty good guess that you'll do okay in college. Like it has pretty good predictive power. And it's true, like your SAT score and your IQ score actually do have pretty good predictive power for success in college. That's true. And your grades also have their good predictive validity of, is it good for predicting college scores? The answer is yes. Yeah, they do. Now, this is the most interesting thing, is the aptitude tests are very predictive. So remember, the aptitude tests would be something like things you can't study for, like an IQ. An IQ test is something you can't really study for. They are predictive in the early years. But what happens is, like, if you have an IQ of 130 plus, right? So they have a name, they have a wording for this, is like, you're in the game. You're in the game of geniuses, right? So like if you have a 130 or you have a 170, like you could pretty much do any job. Like there's not too many jobs that you're not going to be able to tackle intellectually, right? So so what they're saying is, like, once you get up to a really high level and you start comparing these two people, a 130 versus a 170, there's almost like, there is a difference. Like the 170 obviously did score better and might be brilliant versus the 130 who's brilliant. But what's kind of fascinating about this is, like, as you get up to that level, the differences between this and this are negligible almost. And really then it comes down to how hard you work and your kind of the ancillary skills that you have, your, how hard you're going to work, how hard you're going to study. So it's, if you think about, like, getting into an Ivy League school and you have a 1500 on the SAT and somebody else has a 1600, and then the 1600 person doesn't get in, but the 1500 person does, and you're like, I wonder why. It's because they know this. Like at the high level, of really high level scores, it's now talking about intangibles. Like, you're in the game. That's the terminology they use. Like, you're in the game. Now it all depends on, like, what else did you bring to the game besides just like straight up intelligence? Can you work hard? Can you work with people? Can you communicate? Can you So that was this last little section. So I always found that really helpful for me, thinking, even if I don't have a 170, can I still be in the game? Are there intangibles that I can bring to the table? And so, like, when you think about your college interviews and stuff, and the way you communicate with them, the way you communicate with the teachers that are writing your recommendations, whoever is going to observe you, make sure that you've got a good run with those people. Okay. All right. See you later, guys.